there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we have a review on the Viburnum Art watercolor set. I have been stalking this since I first saw it come on Amazon, and I'd kind of been hanging on and waiting, and I was hoping it was going to go on sale during Prime Day, both the summer one and the October one, and it didn't, so I finally just bit the bullet and bought it for $45, and then, I am not kidding, 2 days after I bought it, the price jacked up to $65. So I've got a theory that maybe they are just putting the price up so they can put it on sale for Black Friday. So I really wanted to get this review done in case that happened. That way people would know if they were tempted, whether it was good, whether they should skip it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. It came in this cardboard box. And there's Lightfast rating on the side, kind of little key that tells you what the Lightfast ratings are, from 1 being fugitive to 5 being excellent, and then it tells you whether a color is staining or non-staining, and then it tells you whether the color is transparent to opaque. So you have transparent, semi-transparent, semi-opaque, and opaque. And on the back, there's actually a wonderful swatch that gives you the pigment information right on there. So I think that's really great. I love how large the font is here because a lot of times on the pan wrappers, the font is so small it's hard to read. So I like that. Everything is very clearly written. I'm just doing a quick scan through. Everything seems to be spelled correctly even, so that's good. This is made in China and it conforms to ASTM D4236, and I believe that's the toxicity one. It does not say non-toxic, but it does say it's not intended for use by children. So there you have it. This is an adult art product, and we're going to slide this out. Now the thing that really caught my eye about this set is the wooden box. I am a sucker for beautiful packaging. It's got, it looks like a stained wood with their logo like engraved in, so that they could probably stain the wood and they engraved that in, and it has a lovely smell of just stained wood. I think it's really, really lovely. And there is some information here too if you want to look that stuff up. They've got that little sticker. That way if you discard the box, you've got that information. Unless you choose to remove it, which is your choice, just like the tags on pillows, you know, once it's yours, you can do whatever you want with it. All right, and here we have our beautiful palette. There's these little kind of photo turns here. So you can remove this and clean it out under the sink if you want. It's a plastic palette, but actually it's nicer than I expected. I kind of expected it to be like, I even have one in here. I kind of expected it to be kind of like this like thinner palette, kind of like this came from a Royal Langnickel set, which Royal Langnickel makes a very affordable supplies that you can find in big box stores. But no, this is nice and thick. So I'm pretty pleased with that because I was expecting this to be super chintzy, but that's nice. So I was thinking, oh, I wish it was a ceramic palette, but I have to say it's not going to be ceramic. At least it's nice and thick feeling, and I like that it's easy to remove it out. Now, I suppose if you wanted to cut a piece of tile down or a piece of glass down to put in there, you could do that as well. Yeah, that would be up to you. Probably like going to Home Depot, getting like a white glazed ceramic tile and cutting it would probably be the, if you wanted a ceramic mixing space, would be a good option, although the paint could sink down into the edges unless you siliconed it. So now I'm just probably going to use that because I don't mind that. Now it does have a metal paint holder here, but I think it's been glued down because I can't lift it out. And we've got a beautiful quill brush. Now this was $45. I was very excited to see the quill brush. I'm just gonna, you know what, I think I'm just gonna let it set in the water for a minute just to, I'll do it in my my paint puck here because then I can keep the water just hitting the bristles and not getting the wood. Actually, I can anyway because that's a short one. So we're just going to let that soak for a minute. And I just heard my furnace kick on, so I think I'm probably going to go turn that off. It's coming on a lock. It's pretty cold. But what I've done here is I've taken a piece of watercolor paper and I have made some black marks on it so we can do our swatching. Okay, I went and turned off the furnace because I'm like, this is going to be annoying. I did wait for the furnace to shut off before I started recording, but yeah, it's November in Maine. It's getting chilly. So I thought what I would do is I would unwrap these and probably stick the stickers down here so I don't have to label. First color is titanium white, and actually I don't know if I really need to keep these labels now that I think about it, because I don't know, I guess I can. I'm just seeing where is the, yeah, actually, if I just slide the little wrappers off, I can glue them right in there or staple them in, whatever you want. So looking at the pans here, they look to be liquid poured. Let me zoom in just a little bit here so you can see. They're looking very glossy. They're not sticky at all. So we'll have to see how they re-wet. But yeah, they have a nice gloss to them. Looks like they got plenty of binder. So when I take this out, I'm going to push the little prong in a little bit there. See, I'm just kind of pushing it in towards the clip. And then I'll just do that. And hopefully it wants to move around a little bit. These pans seem maybe a little small, but boy, these are easy. Now look at the divot on that. So it kind of makes me feel like there's not a ton of paint in here. It's like they poured it once and then just let it shrink. They didn't like top it off. Like if you bought, say Schminke half pans, they're liquid poured, but they're also like multiple poured. Most of like your liquid poured pans will be poured multiple times. So I'm just going to stick these down here. I'm going to try to get 6 across. And I just want to have it so I can see the pigment information because I don't want to have to, write them as well. I want to compare this with a, let me see, I got some empty half pans here. Let's just compare with. Oh, do I though? I'm saying I do, but let's see. No, this is a portable painter one. That one's a little bit bigger. Yeah, I'll have to get some other sets, and we'll compare sizes and see how they compare. We'll do that in a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do basically is unwrap all these, put the stickers down, and then we'll swatch together in just a minute. I had a little bit of a change of tack here as I was going. I was just like just pushing the pans out and then pushing the pin down and then putting in there to snap it in. Actually, I'm not going to snap that one in because I want to compare it with some other pans. I was just kind of pressing it down like that, but then it looked like it wasn't going to hold on the paper very well. Even though I put a piece of tape over it, I'm like, I am going to trim these, so I just have that front piece that has all the information on it, and then I'll put a piece of tape over it to just make sure it doesn't come off. I keep my swatches in a like a book bin so I can compare with them. And I was really curious as to who these paints are coming from, because most of these brands on Amazon, you know, they're made from, you know, 1 or 2 factories. And I was trying to figure out who was making these. I still am not sure, but some people said that they thought it might be Paul Rubens, so I thought I would compare the pans with a Paul Rubens pan, just to see size-wise. The pans don't look the same to me, nor does the filling. If I look at a Paul Rubens pan, I'll grab a color that's obviously different so that I don't get confused. The Paul Rubens pan is a little bit wider. The Viburnum art tapers in, kind of like a Winsor & Newton pan. And the Paul Rubens are more flush with the top. So I would not say, these don't seem like Paul Rubens to me, but that's what some people had suggested that maybe they were. The size of the pans look a little bit more like Winsor & Newton, which tend to be a little bit on the small side. So I've got my Winsor & Newton set here. And if I compare them, actually the Viburnum arts are a little bit taller than the Winsor & Newton pans. So yeah, so maybe I was concerned with the divot, but the pan itself seems to be a little bit bigger. Winsor & Newton uses an extruded pan, and this is a poured pan, I would say. So yeah, I guess they're right in the range. I was thinking they seemed a little bit small, but I guess they're not. I guess I was just kind of, I was wrong. That's what I was. I was wrong. This comes with a little swatch card on some nice watercolor paper, which I like. And yeah, it comes with a brush. So I did, and I'll pop that in now. There is no writing or any marking at all on the pans. So if you want, you could write down the pigment number or the name on them with like a fine tip Sharpie, if that's important to you. I'm not going to. I'm just going to pop them right back in the order that they came, and then I will fill out this swatch when I fill out this bigger swatch. I have not pre-wet these, but I did want to show you kind kind of how, I don't know if this will really show up on camera or not, but just to kind of show you that they do have they all have kind of an indent, like they were poured and dried. Like this is probably the fullest one here, this green, that's pretty flush. The other ones have kind of shrunk down, kind of like when you pour your own paints from kind of a fairly fluid tube watercolor and you don't top them off. That's kind of what they do. So that's what that reminds me of there. And we're going to start swatching, and as we go through and swatch, I will talk a little bit about the pigments there. I will, what I'm going to do, I'll show you here. I won't do it for everyone on camera, but I'm going to pull a piece of tape out. This is like this is cute, right? This tape dispenser is the least ergonomic tape dispenser I've ever used. It's very cute, but I would not recommend it. I got it at the Dollar Tree though, so I can't really complain. Yeah, and I'm just going to put a piece of tape over these just so they don't like rub off or peel off in my book bin where I keep my swatches, but I'll do the rest of them later. All right, let's try out the brush too. I'm just going to grab a pad of paper here. Let's try out the brush first because I was very excited about the brush. The sizing came out pretty easily. And you know what? We'll try the brush and we'll just play with the paints and see how they activate. If they don't activate well, then I'll just go ahead and I will look at that. I pinched them all in and they're still sliding around. That's going to be a little bit annoying, I think. They seem to be activating pretty well, though. Let's give this a try. Let's see what we got. Oh, yeah. They seem to activate just fine. Let's see, can we get a fine line? This is synthetic squirrel, so it's a faux squirrel brush. Oh, I like the way it feels. This is a size 4 quill, which is kind of close to like I would say like a 12 or a 14 standard size brush. Like, let's see, this one right here is an 8, I think. That's an 8, so you can see how much bigger the quill is, and this is a 4 quill. So just for kind of reference there. All right, it looks like I don't really need to pre-activate these, so that's a good sign. So let's go ahead and just start swatching. I just wanted to see how that brush is going to feel, and it feels really good. That's good. I'm glad, because a brush even a synthetic quill can be expensive, although there have been cheaper ones coming out recently, but still. That's a nice brush to have because it's very versatile and you can keep it right in here. So I'm liking that. So far, I am impressed. The white, you know what? I think I'm going to take my marker and make a bigger dark area for the white just so I can really see what that looks like. And we'll let that dry. We'll come back to white, and actually I think I will drop a little bit of water on the white because white is always a little bit more finicky to re-wet. All right, we'll start with our yellow. This is lemon yellow. It's got a 4-star light fastness rating, so that would be very good. And it is made with PY3, which is our Hansa yellow pigment. Pretty typical for a lemon yellow. Oh, and it's really nice. Go over the black line. See how transparent it is? That's really nice. No pre-activation on these. The next color is our cadmium yellow medium hue, and that is made with PY213, PY80, and PY83. You've got a 2 pigment. If it was a real cadmium, it would be PY35, I believe. Oh, that's really pretty. Very transparent. And true cadmium pigments are quite opaque, so I actually well, unless I specifically want an opaque pigment, I generally will prefer something more transparent. Cadmium orange hue is PY213 and PO73. Oh, and so far the 2 yellows were very good light fastness at a 4-star rating. This one has a 5-star rating. This is excellent. Very pretty. Our next color is vermilion, and that is PR. See, I'm glad I didn't put the tape on all the other ones because it's making them glossy and harder to read. This is a 4-star light fastness rating, which is very good. It's got PR242 and PY213. I'll have to look up that PY213 because I'm not that familiar with it. It's been in 2 or 3 of these. Well, it's been in, yeah, it's been in 3 of these colors so far. So we got to take a look at that and see what. Oh, that's pretty though, isn't it? I wonder if it's Naphthol red. I don't think it is, but because that color almost has a little bit of a, no, because that's a yellow. That's yellow. I don't know what PY213 is. We'll look it up though. Now we are going to go to our Scarlet Red, which is PR254. Oops, did I grab the right one? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this one. And this is not being pre-activated, so I haven't added water to any of these. That's very pretty, very clean red. PR254, is that a Pyrrole Scarlet? It might be. The next one is Pyrrole Crimson, PR264. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? That looks like an alizarin crimson. Very pretty. Oops, it seems to be repelling on the black. My black marker. The paper I'm swatching on, I generally do my swatches on a cellulose, a fairly inexpensive paper. I either use 100% cellulose, like this B paper is 100% cellulose. It's the B paper from Walmart. I also will use a Fabriano Studio, which is 25% cotton. I find those two papers to be quite similar. Oh, that's pretty. This is PV19 and PR122, so it's a mixture of like a Quin Rose and a Quin Magenta. This is called Rose Madder. It seems a much more vibrant than other Rose Madders I've used. And that's a 4-star Lightfast rating. The Pyrrole Crimson is a 5-star. So far we've got some really nice, pretty Lightfast colors, and I've been forgetting to fill out this. I guess I'll fill out my little swatch there later. I'll do it when we do the glaze. Layer. Next we have Mineral Violet PV16. I'm excited for this one because this should be a granulating color. Hopefully I might need to let it sit and activate, but we'll see what it does right from fresh activation here. Not bad, not bad. PV16. We're gonna see if we get any granulation. It's pretty juicy, so I'm just gonna really dab some wet color in there. We'll let it sit out and see if it settles and granulates on us. That'll be fun to check back on. Dioxazine Violet PV23. That's a pretty typical, extremely strong purple. The clarity on these colors is very nice. Lots of transparency. I'm pretty impressed with these. So yeah, because I mean, like I'm always skeptical with the sets on Amazon, but this one just looked really good to me, and I'm glad I got it for $45. This is Sky Blue PB17. That is a pigment you don't see too often. It's only got 3 stars of light fastness. It is a phthalo. It is a type of phthalo blue, I believe. And you see it, like I've seen it in Paint by Superior. I think that Paul Rubens might have a PB17. You don't see it as often. I think Magello, Mission Gold, has a PB17. Maybe in their Peacock Blue. I think they do have that in one of their colors, I believe. But it's just kind of like a turquoise, bright color. The next color is Phthalo Blue. It's got a 5-star light fastness rating, and it's PB15:3, which is typical. That's what we typically see for a Phthalo Blue. Oh, that is lovely. Look at that. It's very strong and bright. Gorgeous. Just what I would expect. I'm already starting to see some granulation on that Mineral Violet. That's exciting. Now we have Prussian Blue, which is PB27. We have a fair amount of single pigment colors here. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I don't think I'm any harder on a paint that I buy versus one that I get sent from a company. But it's also up to you I mean, you need to know whether I paid for it, what I paid for it, and whether it was given to me, whether a video was sponsored, all of that. I don't do sponsored reviews, but I do sponsored videos occasionally, but they're not reviews. All right, we've got Ultramarine Blue here. This is PB29, again, typical, and I'm going to make sure this is really wet and juicy just so we can see what sort of granulation we get. This is a lovely granulating color in general, so we'll see, like, but sometimes companies will mill their paint a little bit finer so that it doesn't granulate. It just depends on, you know, you can choose what kind you get depending on the effect you want to get. Next we have Spring Green, and that is a 5-star. So we've had quite a few 5-star colors here. This is nice. Spring Green, a combination of PY 151, which is a green gold, and PG 7, which is a phthalo green blue shade. And got that right here. Interesting. This looks kind of like a May green. I don't see the green gold, and that's the primary color, so interesting. It's very, seems quite vivid and yellow for the pigments in there, but it's pretty. I haven't seen anything that's made me doubt the validity of any of the pigments yet, but that color does seem a little bit, I don't want to say sus, but it just seems like the mixture might not be exactly what it says, or I don't know, it just kind of seems weird for that mixture. But anyway, and maybe I'm misremembering, that could be it as well. The next one is Permanent Green, which is a mixture of PG7, which is phthalo green, and PY3, which is Hansi Yellow. And it's got a 4-star light fastness. The other one is a 5-star light fastness, so that's nice. Kind of looks like what a lot of companies call emerald. It kind of looks like PG36 actually, which is phthalo blue, a phthalo green yellow shade, which would make sense because they use the phthalo green blue shade and added a little yellow to it. The next one is just straight PG7, which is a great color to have because you can tint it with all sorts of other colors, and they're calling this phthalo green, which is what I would call it as well. Not very different compared to the other one there. I probably would rather have just this color here and maybe something else in place of that, or just a PG36, but you know, but these are great for mixing, so I mean, it's fine. It's fine, but I do think those are a little too similar to have them both in one palette, because I think you could omit that, put a whole different color in. You could take that, mix it with a little bit of that, and get that, or you could take that and mix it with that and get that. So that's a little redundant. I don't care for that, but hey, when you're buying a set of paints, you never get exactly what you want for every color. This one is Sap Green, which is one of my favorite colors, and it's a mixture of PY83, PG7, and PR101. Ooh, that is pretty, isn't it? That's got a 4-star light fastness rating, which is very good. That is a pretty sap green, I have to say. It's kind of almost like an olive green even. In some lines of paint I prefer olive green, and in some lines of paint I prefer their sap green. Like in Winsor & Newton and Sennelier, I like their olive green better than the sap green, and most other brands I like their sap green better. That reminds me a lot of the olive green from Winsor & Newton or Sennelier. Next up we have Yellow Ochre. That's a color I use all the time in almost every painting I do. I either use a Yellow Ochre or a Raw Sienna. Yellow Ochre is generally a little bit more opaque, but they often come from the same pigment, which is PY42 or PY43. This is a PY42. It's really lovely, slightly opaque, nice warm, buttery, earthy, brownish yellow. Raw Sienna, like I said, is usually a little bit more transparent, so if you're really going for those transparent colors, a Raw Sienna will suit you better. If you're doing a lot of portraits, I prefer Yellow Ochre just because it does help control the viscosity of the paint and give you a little bit of a creamier effect in a portrait. But I mean, those are very subtle changes. This is Burnt Sienna PBR7, which is my preference for Burnt Sienna, but this is very red for a PBR7, to be honest. This looks a lot like the Winsor & Newton's Burnt Sienna, which is a PR101. So I'm quite surprised that's a PBR7 because that's quite red. But that is an iron oxide color, and it can be treated differently to bring out different hues. The next color is Burnt Umber, which is a mixture of PBR7 and PR101. And like I said before, PR101 is often what your Burnt Sienna is from several brands, many brands. And let's see. I'd almost expected that one to have the mixture with the PR101. But this does look like a Burnt Umber. It's very chocolatey. It's a little bit redder than what I usually see in a Burnt Umber, but it is a pretty color, and it's nice to have the variety of earth tones. Now we have a Brown Oxide PBR7. This should be a nice one. This looks like a very cool to neutral leaning brown. Oh, that's pretty, isn't it? It's almost like a Van Dyke brown. PBR7, so what I said about PBR7, it's a versatile, actually any of your iron oxide browns, they can be treated to make different hues, but that is pretty. That one might granulate a little bit. Actually, any of these might granulate a little bit. Any mineral-based colors, because they're not dye-based or mineral-based, they have big, larger pigment particles, and they can settle out of the, they're not water-soluble, and so they can settle out of the mixture a bit, and that's when you get that granulation as it settles out of the water and lays on top of your paper. And that's why your mineral colors tend to be harder to re-wet, like your Daniel Smith Permatech colors, is because they're not fully water soluble, and they're, you know, they have to use a lot of binder to stick it to the paper because they're not going to absorb in. So that's why those are harder to re-wet and give you that beautiful granulation. Next we have Payne's Gray, a mixture of PBK7, PB15, and PV19. Ooh, that's an interesting combo for Payne's Gray. Ooh, and it's pretty, isn't it? Beautiful, cool, transparent gray. I don't think we're going to get, well, we'll have to see, but I would doubt we'd get much granulation from this one, but we'll see. I'm not that familiar with the PV19, so maybe, no, actually PV19 you usually see it in more of a pink, so I don't think this will granulate. Sometimes you get a Payne's Gray made with an ultramarine blue and it granulates quite well. Now we have Lamp Black, which is oddly a mixture of PBK7 and PB15, so that should be a pretty cool black. Should be fairly opaque. The PB15 might be keeping it from being all that opaque, although it does say it's opaque on the little chart there. Well, so far we've got some beautiful colors here. I'm going to let this dry fully, and when we come back we'll see how much I can see some pretty granulation in the ultramarine blue and the mineral violet already, so that's really nice. My rinse water is not looking too cruddy. Here's my 2 buckets of rinse water. We've got the clear and the dirty. It's not that bad. I mean, it's not crystal clear, but, oh, we haven't done the white yet. Well, I'll do the quill. Usually I don't use a quill for white. I'll use something that's a little bit firmer, but let's see what we can get up from that white. Oh, wow, look at that. You know what? We might wear through these colors pretty quickly, because look at how much that dissolved just by putting that water on there. And it does look like it's going to be nice and opaque, so let's... Oh, you know what? This might be a nice white for adding highlights. Look at that. We'll have to see how it dries, if it dries down opaque, but that might be nice just to have a little bit of a portable opaque color. Now that's a PW6, which is a titanium white, which is supposed to be opaque. Chinese white is usually PW4 or PW5, which is a more translucent mixing white, but we'll see how that dries down, if it's real glossy or what we got going on, and we'll come back in a moment and go from there. All right, this is dried, and we can look at how they dried down. Now that white that I put on pretty thickly, there is a sheen, so I don't know how useful it's going to be as a highlight. You know, if it's going to be really shiny when it dries down, but there you have it. The other colors, very transparent. You can see this gorgeous granulation on the mineral violet. Where I knew I recognized PV16, that's also known as manganese violet, so you may have that on a palette under that name. Very beautiful granulating color. Then we have our ultramarine blue is also granulating really, really nice there. And our burnt umber is granulating very well. So you've got those 3 options as far as mixing with other colors to get some granulating hues. The PY151, I was thinking that was green gold. That's actually dilurid yellow. Sometimes it's used as a, I think it's sometimes used as a alternate for a Cerulean because it's more Lightfast. So that does make sense that mixed with the phthalo blue would give us that color. I was thinking it was a little sus at first, but after I looked at it, it seemed to be fine when I looked at that research set pigment. The other yellow that I wasn't familiar with, PY213, is actually a brand new pigment. It was made for the automotive industry, and it's a highly Lightfast, gorgeous, gorgeous yellow, and we've seen that in a few of our colors, so that's nice, very transparent. And oh yes, the PR254, which I said I think is a pyrrole red. It is a pyrrole red, and the interesting thing about that pigment, it's actually Ferrari red. That's the pigment they use for the Ferrari sports car, the classic red. And then this is also a pyrrole red. It's a PR264, which is a nice alternate for alizarin crimson because it is much more light fast. So looking through here, we're going to do our glazes next. And I will do white, even though I think that's going to be really shiny and probably not very useful, but we will do a glaze of white over on top of the white. Generally, you're not going to see much action in a opaque color with the glaze. It's usually going to look about the same. I would recommend not pre-wetting these paints because they are getting very thick when I pre-activate. Like, I didn't pre-activate these with just where they're wet from earlier when we did our first swatches. I'm doing this right afterwards because they dried pretty quickly. I have a little space heater on in my studio. So I would probably not bother pre-activating. I don't think it needs it, and I think you're going to end up wasting paint and getting more than you want. Now hopefully I don't get a bunch of shiny spots on the glaze, so I also don't want the paint too thick. And I'm using a flat for these. Oh shoot, you know what? I wanted to also do my little swatches on my card while I'm at it. So I just have to make sure that however I have these, I like to have a swatch that matches my the setup of my palette. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these swatched while I'm at it. I like that they include a swatch card that fits in the palette. That's, to me, very thoughtful because it's something I would have to do and I don't have to do it, so it makes the enjoyment of this much more enjoyable. And now we've got our vermilion. I'm pretty happy, except for the green that's very samey. That green right there, that's a mix of colors we already have. I'm pretty happy with this selection of colors. Let's see, now we're on to our Ferrari red here. Our scarlet red. So pretty, I love that. It does seem to be quite a bit more opaque when we're looking at it in mass tone with this glaze swatch. The Pyrrole Crimson definitely dulls down a lot, like an alizarin crimson does. See how vibrant it is when we first paint it, and then it gets that kind of like, it gets very bloody as it dries. But the nice thing about that is if you love alizarin crimson, that's a really nice option because it does look like a true crimson. A lot of times alizarin crimson, like a permanent alizarin crimson, is more vibrant, which I actually like. I prefer that more cool, vibrant red. But if you're looking for something a little bit more historical, that's going to be a better option. Mineral Violet. I don't see myself glazing this color ever because this is a color that I would want specifically for its granulating purposes. And I'm going to put a little bit more water in that swatch just so I know that it's granulating. That's probably going to make a mess, but that's what I want it for. And glazing with this color, it's quite a weak color if you're going to use it in a glaze. So I really don't think that's going to be that effective to know how it glazes because it's kind of a weak color when you're just using it. It's funny. I mean, yeah, I could dig up a bunch of it, but I don't really want to waste it for that. And if you just kind of get it on your brush like normal, it's pretty weak. You can kind of see the glaze versus the juicy wash that I put down there. Dark Design Violet, though, on the other hand, that's super duper dark in mass tone. Because like the Mineral Violet, that could be, I just realized that could be very confusing the way I'm describing that. Mass tone is usually how, like, when we describe mass tone, it's kind of very little water, it's kind of bringing it out almost full strength. But to do a glaze, you need it to be fluid enough that you can lay it down. And if I have the Mineral Violet to the right consistency of a glaze, it's very light. Does that make any sense? I don't know. PV17. Whoops, this is phthalo. It is a phthalo blue. It's phthalocyan cyan. Or phthalocyanine cyan, which is more of that kind of true primary blue, but it's not as light fast. So just keep in mind. And ironically, that's a super transparent color and super smooth, but it's because they add stuff to that pigment to make it keep from granulating and flocculating, which it would do in its natural state. Which is kind of, it's like, man, I kind of would prefer that. I wish they would provide that pigment like that sometime. I keep forgetting to do my little swatch there. Look at these colors though. They did a nice job at getting some really beautiful, vibrant ones and unique ones, except for that darn green. Kind of want to pull it out of my palette and put something else in there, but I probably won't. Then we got our Prussian blue, which is a beautiful like indigo color. They're giving it a 5-star light fastness rating, but the thing to just be aware of, and I know I've said it before, so you probably say you're a broken record, Lindsay, but that may get brown if you hang it up in light. Your Prussian blue tones may go a little brown, and all you got to do is take it out of the light, put it in the closet for a few days, and then bring it back out, and it'll be back to normal. Same thing glazing with the ultramarine blue as with glazing with the mineral or manganese violet, is that because it's a more on the opaque side of a watercolor, and it's got that beautiful granulating texture, I don't see myself glazing with it too often. Also, your mineral colors, the colors that tend to granulate, also tend to lift more than your other colors that are smoother, so it's just going to be a more difficult process to try glazing with them. So that's another reason why it's kind of nice to know what paints do what, so that when you're trying to choose a color for a specific purpose, you know what's going to work well. And again, forgot to swatch those. Now, the reason I use 2 buckets of water, which again, you probably already know, Lindsay, you're a broken record, it's because I use 1 bucket for cleaning my brush and the other bucket for getting fresh water for a wash, so I always have a fresh water. And you don't have to empty your water as often if you do that, which is really handy if you have a basement studio like I do, so you're not always running upstairs to try to get fresh water. And this is our mixed green, which is a pretty green. It's kind of like the emerald green color we see, but I don't know, I don't use it very often. I tend to go for more of just the phthalo green and add some orangey or some yellow to it, depending on the green that I want. Alright, speaking of phthalo green, blue shade, that's this guy right here. Is it? Did I grab the wrong color? Yeah, that's it. Okay, jeez. See, you really want to swatch your colors because it's confusing when they're dry. It's hard to tell what you really have there. I like this sap green. Glaze is really pretty too. You can kind of see how it goes over that other color there. Oops, I want to get some more for a swatch on my little... It's a nice glowing sap green. Now we've got a yellow ochre. That's a more opaque color. But you can still glaze with it nicely. I'm noticing the more mineral-based colors are definitely not wanting to be as nice in glazes in this set particularly. These kind of dried out. These remind me of the way they're dried down in the pans. It reminds me of the Renaissance watercolors that I have in tubes that I put in pans. It's kind of how they look like, but I think these re-wet better than those do. I should get those out. I haven't painted with those in a while. This burnt umber is a beautiful granulation. It must be the PR101 that's granulating because the other colors of the PBR7 in the set are not granulating. It's gorgeous and rich color. Although that one glazes really well, even though it's a granulator. Oh shoot, I forgot to swatch it here. There we go. That's like a hot press paper. The swatch card is like on a hot press paper. Alright, now we've got our brown oxide, more of our richer, darker, cooler brown. Put that on a little swatch of that as well. And we've got our Payne's Gray. That should glaze really nice. Very pretty, rich gray. I have a feeling that might be kind of shiny when it dries, so we'll have to go back and look at that. I'm excited to do some paintings with these, actually. So what's probably going to happen is that I will do some paintings, and I'll come back and show you the paintings and kind of go over everything. Now, we could do a lift test on these if you're curious to see if the staining ratings on the labels matches the lifting in real life. And I'm gonna grab, because I don't want to damage a brush. I tend to use my scrubbers. Well, I use my flat, and then I won't press too hard. Some people do the lifting tests with like a soft synthetic brush, like a faux squirrel, and I don't think that's really quite fair. I don't think you'd really lift with one of those brushes typically. So I'll use this Taklon Cotman watercolor brush. So let's see. The white lifts up pretty well, but they're calling that not staining, I think. let me just look at their non-staining, empty triangle, high staining, a filled in triangle, and medium is half and half. So they're calling this one non-staining as well. And I would agree. They're calling this one non-staining. I would agree. They're calling the Cat Orange Hue non-staining. I would agree. They're calling the Vermilion non-staining. I would agree. They're calling this one mid-staining, the Scarlet mid-staining. I would agree. They're calling the Pyrrole Crimson mid-staining. I'm trying not to get into my glaze when I do this. Boy, that one's less staining than the Scarlet Red. That one, but it does leave a little bit of trace. So yeah, I'd give it to them. That's mid. They're calling this one non-staining. Yeah, which is surprising for a PV19, but it did lift up pretty well. Maybe they did their own staining tests. I find that oftentimes your less expensive paints, they tend to lift more. Like, I think they have more binder in them. Like, oh, that lifts up really well, but I'm not surprised. That is, they call that non-staining. That one lifted up so well, but your granulating colors generally do lift up any of your mineral-based colors because they sit on the surface and they don't absorb. And this one should be pretty well staining because it's Dioxazine Violet. They call it a mid-staining color, and I would agree with that. It's lifting up somewhat. I can see some white of the paper. The next one they're calling staining, which I wouldn't be surprised. I'm surprised that it does lift up pretty well for a staining color. Maybe it's this paper. It could be because this is a cellulose paper and more absorbent cotton might stain more. And this one is also rated as staining, which for a phthalo, I am not surprised. I think this paper might let go of the paint a little bit better, so this might not be a really great test on this paper. It might not be super accurate if you're using a softly sized paper. And I tend to go for more harder sized papers myself. That one lifted up really well, and they're calling that mid-staining. You know, your results might be a little different than mine, so just please keep that in mind. And if you really need to make sure your paints lift, that's a technique you do a lot, then test it on a scrap of your paper first before, like, oops, you know what, I'm gonna have water blossoms all over this because I keep dropping drips of water there. Yeah, just make sure you test it, because if you're using, like, say, Fabriano soft press, that's probably gonna be more likely to stain. Or if you're using any handmade watercolor papers, they might be more likely to stain. So these are all saying non-staining. And I'm getting a little bit of staining on that, but phthalo color stain, and that's made with a phthalo color, so that makes sense that it would. Especially being such a dark color. That one lifted up. I'm surprised at how well that lifted up. That one says it's staining. I would expect this color to be staining, but you know, now I'm thinking it's my paper. My paper might just be a little heavily sized. And this is cellulose paper. A lot of times cellulose will have a little more sizing in it. But this is a cheap paper, so I'm really surprised at how well it's lifting. This would be a really nice paper for a student. I'm really glad that that Walmart is selling this bee paper. So you may be curious what happened to bee paper, because we used to all buy those packs of 100% cotton bee paper from Walmart for like $15, those 6x9 pads. The bee paper company was sold to Royal Langnickel, and you can still get that cotton paper. It's more expensive now. I think it's around $20, but you can still find it. But Royal Langnickel has a lot of placement in large American stores anyway, so, and their prices are always, I feel like, you know, they're not the highest quality art supplies. They're definitely in the budget realm. They're not trying to compete with, like, you know, Winsor Newton or Daniel Smith or anything, but I do feel like for what they charge, usually your money's worth. But, you know, don't spend $10 on a 50 pack of paper and expect it to be, you know, arches. Well, on this paper, most colors are lifting. So I would trust their ratings, especially if you're using a more softly sized paper. I don't like to do too much. And also I'm using a Taklon brush to lift. If you're using like a squirrel brush or something a little bit softer, then you're not going to get as much lifting. But if I need to lift, I always go with either a scrubber or a Taklon brush because it's less abrasive on the brushes and it does a better job. So just for that information. That one actually, I found the lamp black to stain and it said non-staining. But anyway, there's where we are right now. I'm pretty happy with this. I forgot to swatch my last two colors here. Oh my word! It's because I'm talking. It's because I'm talking and swatching. It's whoops. Let's add a little more water to that. I think I'll go change my water, do some paintings, and then come back after I've done that, and we'll see what I really think about this. So far, so good. If swatching was an accurate measure of a paint set, I would say go ahead. This, even at 65, it's a decent value. But we know that's not the case. We know that we cannot base a review on just swatches because we've been burned before, haven't we? We have swatched out a paint that looks fantastic, but then we go to paint with it. There's nothing there, you know? It's like, I don't know. It's all flash and no substance, but we don't know. I'm hoping this will be lots of substance. So when we come back, it'll be in the future, and you'll see how these perform in the actual painting of something. I just finished doing this painting and I thought the paints were really easy to work with. I got some beautiful granulation in the background with that mineral violet and the ultramarine blue. Colors mixed and layered really well. I got myself in a little bit of a tangle in this painting, but it was not the paint's fault. Looking at the paint, the thing I will say is that it seems like these paints are wearing down kind of quickly. If I look at that yellow, all I've used is to swatch and on that painting, and I'm seeing a pretty significant dent there. And in the white. And I don't know, I'm wondering, even the paint gray has a pretty big dent on it. Kind of like how the Rosa Gallery paints wear down kind of quickly. That's kind of how these feel to me. These are made in China, and Rosa Gallery is made in Ukraine. I have no idea if another company is making these for Viburnum art. I have no idea who it is, but because I haven't really encountered this paint before. So I thought one other thing I want to do in this review is to do some color mixing. And so I will do my warm primaries and cool primaries. Let's do the cools first, and I'm going to do lemon yellow. And, oh, I should have cleaned off my palette, but I'll do a little bit on each side there to mix into. We'll do, let's do our rose madder here. Well, let's mix a nice orange. And let's do our phthalo blue for our cool blue. Won't need much of that. Gives us a beautiful purple. Might need to add a little bit more rose into that. And I'm going to put a little more yellow in there. Then I'll add some blue to it because the blue is so much stronger than the other colors. Our cool colors make a beautiful primary. I guess I could zoom in a little bit more. Sorry about that. And then let's do our warm primary. And those mixes are great. I maybe put a little bit more lemon yellow into the, yeah, makes a great orange. PY3 is pretty easy to come by, so that'll be easy to refill your own from whatever brand you want. Yeah, I really don't have any qualms with this set. Let's see, for warm reds, I'm going to do our beautiful, they call it Scarlet Red. For my red, I'll do this Cad Yellow Medium Hue. Do that for our yellow. You could also use like an Indian yellow or a gamboge, kind of that just beautiful warm yellow. I will do our Scarlet Red, our Ferrari Red here. generally will get a good orange with warm red and warm yellow, and we usually get kind of a dull purple and an earthy green. So let's do our ultramarine blue for our warm blue. Mix a little bit of that in the red. You can see we get kind of more of a grayed purple, kind of like an eggplanty color. Clean my brush off. Get a little bit more of that warm yellow in there because I know we'll need a little bit more. We'll take our ultramarine blue and get kind of an olive green. Yeah, the colors are what I would expect. I think I will put a little bit more of that warm yellow in the orange just so we can see. Yeah, the mixes are what I would expect. I had no problems working with these. I think they're beautiful paints. Pros and cons. The pro, well, it's beautiful packaging. It's gorgeous. It comes with a swatch card that seems to be really nice quality. Let's bring it over here now that it's dry. I did splash some water on it while we were working, but yeah, it's on watercolor paper. It's a nice paper. We've got a nice mixing area. It's plastic, but it's not cheap plastic. It's a decent quality plastic. We have a beautiful selection of colors. The only color I would be, well, honestly, for my own personal taste, I would say get rid of that color, get rid of that color, get rid of that color, just because I personally don't tend to use white, black, or too many mixed greens. I would rather kind of mix that with my different colors and get some beautiful greens. Actually, let's do some green mixing. I think that might be kind of fun because, and plus I'm trying to use up these postcards. I bought these postcards on Amazon because it said they were, let's zoom up for a minute. It said they were like synthetic, so I thought, oh, it's going to be like Yupo. They were not. They're just cheap cellulose paper. So, sorry for the shake there. I got to do something about that arm. So, pros and cons. Like I said, I love the color selection, but there's a few things that I would omit. I personally don't have use for that white or that black or that green because I can mix that green if I wanted that green. I can't imagine wanting that green on purpose because I tend to, if I'm going to use a mixed green, I'll use that. Or I'll take my phthalo green and I will mix my own greens, which I'm going to show you. Love the granulating mineral violet. Love that ultramarine. You get some granulating options, which I really like. In fact, let's actually mix up a color. Let's do our ultramarine blue and burnt umber. So a lot of times we do ultramarine and blue and burnt sienna, but I think this will be better with burnt umber because that one granulates a little bit better. So let's just mix some of that up. And that will make a beautiful gray. And then as it dries, we'll see the beautiful granulation in it because we've got two granulating colors there. And that's just a nice gray to make because you can make it a little bit warmer, you can make it a little bit cooler depending on what you need. But we'll just let that dry. We can look at it in a little bit and see how it looks. You can already start to see the colors split apart. It's very pretty. I don't think there's any problem with the quality of the paint. They all look very transparent. If I bring that even so you can see it a little bit closer, even the colors they're considering semi-transparent or opaque are not fully opaque. They still have a lot of luminosity. The only shininess I saw a little bit here where I had quite a puddle of it. Probably had a little bit too much. The white, because I put it down pretty thickly, that's very shiny. But other than that, I mean, some of the really thick mass tone, you can see a little bit of sheen, but not bad at all. So I don't feel like it's overbound. I feel like it's got a really good balance of pigment to binder. The colors are nice and vibrant. Con is I think they're going to wear down pretty quickly because I'm already seeing divots in some of the colors I used in that painting that I did. But onto the greens. Like I said, I was going to show you how to mix some greens. So the phthalo green, which is this color right here, right there, that really dark one, that's a really great mixing color. So let me show you what I mean. If I take the phthalo green on its own, it looks like this. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm just going to mix right on the paper. I'm going to make a few patches of it. Now, let's mix it with some of our yellows that we have. So let's mix it first with our lemon yellow. I'll probably regret that because that's starting to wear down, but it's PY3. It's a very common color. I have that in other versions. You can see you can get a really nice, add some water there. Some really nice spring greens when you do those two colors together. Want more earthier colors? We want to go a little bit further apart on the color wheel, so we'll go to our more warm yellow. And look at that, we start to get something that looks a little bit more like a sap green or a bamboo green. It's just got a little bit more warmth to it. And that looks, to me, that looks really natural. I love that. Oops, I got to get a little bit more. That's drying up on me. If I want something a little bit more olivey, I go into like an orange. And we get this kind of more earthy brown green. Which is really pretty. We can do some yellow ochre. Let's do a little more green in there. I didn't realize how fast it's going to dry, but I have my little space heater on, like I mentioned. I think I mentioned it. I'll do some yellow ochre. That'll give us a nice earthy green as well. And that's a little bit more muted earthy green. And then finally, let's do the phthalo green and let's do some burnt sienna. I think that will give us a pretty color too. And then you could mix the green with blues and get some more blue greens and teals and stuff if you wanted to. But see, that's why I love a phthalo green. You get these, you just have such a great variety of colors just from that one green, mixing it with other colors. Now you might be thinking, what are you going to do with that, Lindsay? You know what you could do with this? You could take like a tree or bamboo or something, stamp it, like if you had a stamp it right on top of that, and then you get a postcard. That's what I generally use these like scraps for, that I swatch colors out and I mix colors on. I'll just use them as embellishments on greeting cards. I do these artsy-fartsy cards sometimes, or I just take a bunch of like old swatches and I collage them together and make greeting cards. So it's kind of fun. But let's look back at this. You can see a little bit of the beautiful textures that you get when you mix your own grays like that. And you can see these mixes dry. And now this is like a pretty cheap paper, so it's not going to knock your socks off or anything, but you can see the mixes do hold up. And for what it's worth, I think this set is a really nice set. Now let's try cleaning our palette and see if it comes clean or if it stains. I'm just using water. I'm not using anything fancy, and I did not pre-treat the palette. I didn't like wipe it with toothpaste or glue stick or any of those hacks that I see. I'm generally not too bothered by, you know, plastic palette. I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to it. But I've also been mixing paint for a long time, so I don't necessarily, it doesn't like really throw off my mixes too much if it's beating up. Of course, if I had my druthers, I'd have a ceramic palette in here, but I do like how you could pop this out and rinse it. That's probably better than having a ceramic palette that stays in there all the time. Excuse the noise. Boy, that sounds awful, doesn't it? Scrape, scrape, scrape. Oh, I can't believe it's not staining. Not to say that it never will stain, but I was using some pretty staining colors in there, and there's no stains. That's great. I'm pretty impressed with that. So, yeah, you know, I honestly don't think it's that bad of a deal at $65, but when you're talking $65, then you can get like a Paul Rubens palette. Like you could get the, this one goes on sale for like, I think I paid $68 for this. But it's generally around $78, and that's 48 colors, and the colors don't wear down as quickly. That's a Paul Rubens set of 48. So, you know, when you're getting around the same price, I'd have to recommend Paul Rubens over the Viburnum. Viburnum. What a weird name. I'd have to recommend the Paul Rubens over that. The price gets up there, but for $45, I think the novelty of the wooden palette, it is well made. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like, when I first saw it, I'm like, is this going to be like one of those seamy art palettes that are, you know, the hinges are off and, you know, no, it feels good. It feels really well made. I love the brush that comes with it. The Paul Rubens set doesn't come with a brush, so I mean, there's a bonus for that. Another con is I don't like how the pans move around. You know, you could put a magnet on the bottom of the pans to help them, or maybe even just the first and the last to keep them from moving around, but that's not that big of a deal for me, but it is something to mention. It seems really well made, and I would say it is really well made. I have no qualms. Everything seems fine with this, and I would say if you get it for $45, that's a great deal. That's a great deal. $65, meh, I don't know. I wouldn't pay $65 for it. I barely was able to justify paying $45 for it, but I'm glad I got it, and it doesn't disappoint. We'll see how quickly it wears down the more I use it. I think these are going to wear down very quickly, so, you know, that's something to consider. You know, the paint doesn't last you that long. Like Paul Rubens has a set of 24, and it's $38 generally, and well, $39, $40. It's right around that. It's around that, around $40. And their colors do not wear down that quickly at all. These are wearing down kind of like Rosa Gallery paints, but I have to say I almost feel like these paints are a higher quality than the Rosa Gallery, but they both wear down about the same, so maybe it's just the color selection I'm liking a little bit more. I do love that bright ultramarine. Yeah, it's a nice set. I love how that burnt umber mixed with the green, and it mixed well with the blue. It's nice. It's kind of no frills, but I like how there's a couple of unique colors like that PB17 and that PV16. Those are unusual. You don't usually see those in a set. That's kind of an unusual and really nice option if you want to do a Zorn palette, you want to do something that's a little bit more traditional, you could do that for alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, Prussian blue. These are very like traditional colors. You could do a very traditional palette with these. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I would wait for it to be $45. I have a feeling they jacked the price up because Black Friday's coming up and they're going to want to put it on sale. That's my opinion. I have no idea if it's true or not, but I'd say for $45, you have my blessing. For $65, it's your money. Do what you want with it. I don't know. But then again, it has the brush, and I would say the brush is would be probably worth the extra $10. I don't know. I've been finding some pretty sweet synthetic quills lately though, so I don't know. If I hadn't seen the other synthetic quills that I found recently, I might have rated this higher. But this is a nice brush. It's very versatile. It's a great size. The number 4 quill is nice. So, and it's well made. You know, I'm giving this 2 thumbs up. I'm bummed that they jacked the price by $20, but if you can snag it for $45, I would say definitely. It's lovely. It smells good. There's no weird chemical smell. There's just a beautiful stained wood smell. And I am glad I bought it. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you however I can. I will link to this on Amazon. I bought this with my own money. The link is an affiliate link, which means I earned a small commission if you purchase through that link. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but I do thank you. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye.